What's going on, Dolphins fans and potentially any Bills fans that are watching this video previewing the upcoming AFC East title game between the Miami Dolphins and Buffalo Bills this Sunday night? I'm here to break it all down from the Dolphins fans' point of view, and I'm going to start with the Dolphins offense versus the Bills defense, and this is going to be an absolute battle, as have the past couple of weeks been for the Miami Dolphins, facing a lot of good teams, and this is no different for the AFC East division, which is insane. It's unfortunate it got to this point, but as Dolphins fans and players have noted, if you told us before the season our last game of the season would be deciding the AFC East, I think we all would have accepted that pretty happily. So this is no different. So starting with the Dolphins offense, they are first in points per game. The Buffalo defense is fourth in points allowed, so both very good units. Dolphins are first in passing yards per game. Buffalo is seventh in passing yards allowed, so once again, both very good. Dolphins are fifth in rushing yards per game, and the Bills are 15th in rushing yards allowed. So the biggest discrepancy we've seen so far between all of the stats, and maybe something to exploit McDaniel. Please stop not running the ball. Some notes for this upcoming matchup in terms of injuries. Dolphins could be getting some key players back. Maybe Jalen Waddle. I'm not necessarily holding my breath out. He hasn't practiced yet, but McDaniel said there's a chance. Obviously, this game is of the utmost importance, and I know Waddle can tough it out. It's really, will they allow him to? Honestly, if it's gonna hinder how he performs, I'd rather just rest him up, because we're already in the playoffs. Obviously, seeding is very important. The home playoff game, especially for this offense, is imperative, but I'd rather have a fully healthy Waddle than rush him back too soon. And then a big one, Robert Hunt potentially back, which I'm really hoping he actually is. That's a big boost to this offensive line. You'll have your starting left tackle, and right guard. So 3/5 of your offensive line finally being healthy would be pretty good. I'm kind of hoping for that. So those are the notes I have ahead of this game. Now into the keys of the game. And the number one, I mentioned it in the statistics part, but run the ball and continue to run it.
Run the dang ball!
McDaniel will have some successful runs, and sometimes he tries to continue it, and it'll be like a first down run for like a yard, and I understand why you don't want to run the ball consecutive times, but there are some times where we have success on the ground and he just refuses to stick with it. I think back to last year, the snow game in Buffalo, where the Dolphins were having plenty of success running the ball, and if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure McDaniel actually did stick with it. And it's kind of like what happened last week. Like, the Dolphins had success on the ground, and they just necessarily, it's hard to stick with it when you start, like when your defense can't stop anybody, but it causes some of those spirals, in my opinion, when you have success running the football, and then the score gets a little larger, you stop running the ball, then the defenses can play you differently, and that's what we've seen in some of these blowout losses, and it kind of leads into the key number two, which is limit mistakes, don't allow that spiral, and I think part of that is continuing to run the ball, because once they have no fear of actually stopping the run, then their linebackers can easily gain depth on those play-action passes and get into the throwing windows that Tua very well hits. So if there's people in them, obviously it's going to be interception or batted balls. It's not good. Part of the reason those windows are open is because of the fear of the run. But once that goes away, all things are off the table. And part of what I mean by run the ball is, like, I'm telling you, if we're having success running the ball, like, I want to see 30 plus carries. I want to see us run the ball for 200 yards. Like, if they can't stop us consistently from getting like a 3 to 4 yard gain, keep doing it, because especially with the guys we have in Mostert and Achane, they're gonna break some. So, like, pound the fucking rock, like, shorten the game, and then in that essence, like, it genuinely just makes it, like, say Josh Allen throws one turnover, that could be it. Like, we can, if we like turn into one of those tough running teams like the Ravens have been or the Niners have been, like, stick with it is what I'm trying to hope McDaniel does if we're having success. The Bills defense is very good, so there's a good chance that, hey, we try and run the ball and we're not able to establish it. Okay, by all means, throw the ball around the house. But if you're having success running the football, stick with it, because a lot of teams are like, they'll let us run the ball for like 3 to 5 yards consistently because they're more terrified of Tyreek Hill. But stick with those 3 to 5 yards, take time off the clock, limit the ability to make mistakes, and keep the ability for play-action pass to be at the utmost effectiveness. Because you can still play-action pass if you're not able to establish the run, but if you are able to, it makes it that much more difficult. And then the final key for the Miami Dolphins offense, in my opinion, is protect number one. The Bills have our number in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback. Part of that, I feel like, is not fearing having to stop the run, as well as they just have a great defensive front. And I'm going to get into that now with the players to watch for the Bills. And this might be the longest list I've seen all season, starting with Ed Oliver, one of the best interior defensive linemen in all football. Tron Johnson, who is their slot corner, really allows them to stay in nickel regardless of what personnel the Dolphins are in. And that's another kind of reason why they should stick to running the ball. The Bills basically live in nickel. It doesn't matter if we show Alec Ingold and a tight end on the field, they're going to stay in nickel, which a lot of teams, they'll match personnel with their personnel, and they'll add another linebacker. But the Bills, because of Teron Johnson, he deserves a lot of love because he's a stud. He's basically like a corner slash linebacker because of how physical he is. But you can only be so physical against certain size. Like if you have a fullback and the tight end on the field and your response is to not add a linebacker, you should make them pay. So that's kind of my big reason why we should run the ball consistently and try and mirror what we did in Buffalo last year in the snow game. But Teron Johnson is a phenomenal player. Daquan Jones, they just recently got back from injury as a very good pass rusher interiorly for them. Terrell Bernard is their, I believe, rookie linebacker who's had a tremendous season. Obviously, Matt Milano going down is a huge loss for them, but he's been able to step up pretty well. Rasul Douglas, the corner from the Packers, got traded at the deadline. He's been very good for them. I think he won Defensive Player of the Week recently. I think it might have been last week if I'm not mistaken. Big Greg Rousseau out of Miami, very good player for them. And that's the thing with the Bills, they get pressure with their front four pretty consistently. He's part of that reason. AJ Epinesa, we all know what he's done to the Dolphins before. He's a very good player. Obviously, their safety tandem of Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are still very good. Despite aging, they're still very good. Leonard Floyd had a solid year in terms of sack production. I think he's at like 11 and a half sacks. And then the last player on this list, I put Von Miller with a question mark because he's been asked, but he's also Von Miller. Hopefully he doesn't turn into Von Miller for this AFC East title game. But that's it, my breakdown on the Dolphins offense versus the Bills defense. Both very good units. I think the key to success for the Miami Dolphins is to establish and stick with the run and see what happens. Now for the Bills offense versus the Dolphins defense. And I think, once again, this is probably where the game's going to be decided. Bills offense is 5th in points per game. Dolphins defense is 22nd, but they were 13th last week prior to getting their doors kicked in by the Ravens. Bills are 10th in passing yards per game. Dolphins are 12th in passing yards allowed. Bills are 7th in rushing yards per game, and Dolphins are 7th in rushing yards allowed. So in terms of yardage, both of these units are basically neck and neck. Some notes for the Dolphins. Jerome Baker's possibly back. Once again, his window has been opened up, so maybe we get him back, which would be a benefit for the Dolphins. Although Duke Riley has been very good, but having more options is all the better. Agba and Ingram need to step up. They're going to be the guys filling in for Bradley Chubb. The combination of them, I'm not sure how they're going to be utilized, but hopefully they step up and do their job. I believe in these guys. Losing Chubb was more important than the loss, in my opinion. Like, that it's such a big loss, because now we don't have like an elite pass rusher. Now we just have a group of guys which are still solid, and you have to remember, like, this is the NFL. Everyone in here is good. It's just about them being able to consistently execute. Agba's shown it. He hasn't really had the opportunities, so hopefully Agba steps up. He was also a healthy scratch, and I thought it was because they didn't want him to play, but they wanted him to heal up. So. And then the corners are going to be Eli Apple, Kader Kohu, and Jalen Ramsey. Basically, Vic Fangio announced that. So, defensive keys for the game. First and foremost, get the pass coverage back in sorts. Last week, obviously, our pass coverage was donkey dick. And as much as you'd like to blame Vic Fangio, a lot of that was personnel related. A lot of inability to pass off coverages and responding late to things. And it was mainly, I don't want to say on the players. Like, the coaches are responsible for putting the players in those positions. But there were some blown coverages that I haven't really seen out of the Dolphins all year, and it's imperative that they get back on track. I think part of it, I'm not blaming it all on Javon Holland, but it's his first game back from injury, seeing like live bullets. I think it just takes some time to get fully encompassed in it. Like when we saw Brandon Jones take over for Javon Holland, his first game was awful, and then he was baller after. Hopefully we kind of see the same thing where Javon Holland kind of struggled his first game back, and now is kind of returns to form. So yeah, that is key to get this coverage in source so we don't get picked apart and have coverages blown so there's 75-yard touchdowns like we saw last week. Number 2, get pressure any means necessary. This Dolphins defense was very good at getting pressure with just sending four, whether it was with stunts in games or simulated pressures, but they were able to do it. If we can do it the same way we've been able to, despite not having Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, by all means, continue that same plan. But if that's not having success because you have a downgrade in the players rushing the passer, you got to get pressure any means necessary. Whether that's sending blitzes or running stunts in games every single play, you have to get after Josh Allen. Any means necessary, whether, like I said, blitzing, just rushing for, you just have to get the pressure. Last but not least, don't let Diggs beat you. Last time we played them, Diggs destroyed us with Cater Coho on him. You've got to have a plan for him, whether it's matching Ramsey up on him or having him doubled, whatever it is, because like I said, people like to criticize Fangio and McDaniel, but at the end of the day, these guys are professionals at the top of their craft. Like, they know more than me. I trust their game plan more than whatever game plan I would cook up. So don't let Diggs beat you. If it's Gabe Davis that beats you, you can rest at night much better if you let Gabe Davis beat you than Stephon Diggs. So don't let Diggs beat you. And then players to watch for this Bills offense, obviously Josh Allen. He has the Dolphins number. I've mentioned this a lot, especially on Twitter. Like, Josh Allen, my perception of how you stop him, you park two safeties deep, you force him to check the ball down, and eventually he's going to get bored and throw a coverage punt, basically. You just throw it up, you got to pick. But for the Dolphins, for whatever reason, and I'm sure we played the same way I'm explaining the first time we played him, he just picks the Dolphins apart. I don't know what it is. Like, against the Jets, he'll just toss up 4 picks. Against the Patriots, same thing. The Dolphins, this dude turns into a cyborg and picks us apart. Very frustrating. So hopefully we get Josh Allen throwing a couple picks. James Cook, Vic Fangio called him the best running back the Bills have had since Thurman Thomas. I don't know how true that is, considering they've had LaShawn McCoy and Fred Jackson, but nonetheless, James Cook is a very good player, both running the ball and catching the ball. Stephon Diggs, obviously, not much explanation needed. One of the best receivers in all of football. Gabe Davis has his moments. We all know it goes like this, basically. He'll ball out and then have a crappy couple games and ball out. So he's a huge receiver, very good after the catch because he's very physical. And last but not least, rookie Dalton Kincaid, who's had himself a great season, has basically been Josh Allen's safety blanket underneath in zone coverages. He's very good. So those are the players to watch. That's the breakdown. Now I'm going to give my prediction. Before I give mine, comment yours down below. Dolphins are 11-5 on the season. I'm 11-5 in predictions as I've picked the Dolphins to win every game. Okay? It's bad. I've wanted to try and diversify, but then I buy myself into believing too much. I'm 22-11 dating back to last year. And I feel like at this point, I got to go with the bit. I can't switch up. I have the Dolphins beating the Bills to win the AFC East and get the 2 seed, 27-24. Comment yours down below. Appreciate you guys for watching. It means so much to me. And until next time, I'll catch y'all.